Hi, welcome to Superhero Rundown. I'm Jess, and today we're discussing development hell, which is what I get stuck in every single time I need to script a new episode. Development hell is defined as the state wherein an announced creative project becomes stuck at the preparation stage for years. What does this mean for superhero media? Well, it's basically where the industry gets stuck in pre-production or where production can start happening, but then things go awry. And it has a feedback loop of sorts. A director will quit, the project will get a new one, he or she orders a new screenplay with producers demanding changes, which forces the director to quit. Now, there are many projects we could talk about. We could talk about Hellboy 3 with Guillermo del Toro, but I discussed that in my Hellboy episode up here, so we won't rehash that. There was Doctor Strange, written by Neil Gaiman, Jinx starring Charlize Theron, Dazzler with Bo Derek, Darkchild directed by John Carpenter, Wolverine and the X-Men starring Bob Hoskins as Wolverine and Angela Bassett as Storm. Batman vs. Godzilla? How would that even work?
He has a plan for everything,
There was the Crow remake with Jason Momoa, which got shelved because please don't remake The Crow. But there are a few shining examples to show what I mean. Batman Triumphant, and the Gambit movie that never got made. Then we get to the ones that have footage shot already. Wonder Woman's 2011 pilot, the Fantastic Four from the 90s, which I did talk about in the Doom episode, but I'm going to talk about the filmmaking aspect of it, and Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage. First, let's talk about Batman Triumphant, which was supposed to take place after Batman and Robin? So, a 150-page script outline was hashed out with Nicolas Cage at the center playing the Scarecrow. It would have been very dark, Schumacher recalls, and the film would apparently have focused on George Clooney's Batman learning to conquer fear and to confront the demons of his past. These demons would have included the legacy of the Joker, as personified by the film's secondary villain Harley Quinn. Schumacher describes the film as thusly. Scarecrow would develop a fear toxin, with his plan being to use it on Bruce/Batman, turn him insane, and get him locked up in Arkham Asylum. Batman's time under the influence of the toxin was intended to culminate in a show-stopping cameo-filled hallucination sequence. Warner Brothers wanted to bring back Danny DeVito's Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, Tommy Lee Jones' Two-Face, and Jim Carrey's Riddler for this Batman freakout scene, leading to a final confrontation with, who else, Jack Nicholson's Joker. The point was to have Schumacher tie up all the Batman films, including Tim Burton's. But think about it. If this actually went off without a hitch, Schumacher might have redeemed himself in the eyes of Batman fans. Batman and Robin, which I'm discussing in the next episode, was what caused Batman Triumphant to be shelved. Now we can talk about the hot mess of the Gambit movie that doesn't exist. Okay, so the X-Men franchise has a weird history that we'll get into when we talk about Wolverine in film, but for now we'll concentrate on X-Men Origins Wolverine where Gambit appeared. Originally, Channing Tatum was supposed to appear in the film, but because of the weird mess of G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra scheduling, Taylor Kitsch was cast instead. Kitsch, which also happens to be my high school nickname, signed a 3-picture deal. The problem with Kitsch, though, was that it was not a breakout movie for him. Tatum wanted to take over from him, saying, "Gambit's my favorite. I'm from New Orleans, around that area. My dad's from New Orleans, and I like to do a Cajun accent. I could do it for real." No knock on Taylor Kitsch, though, because I actually like his Gambit, but I've always lived around Cajun people. Gambit was always like the woman-loving, cigarette-smoking, drinking guy. He was the punk rock of all the superheroes. What really gets me is that I can't picture Channing Tatum as Gambit. Tatum was going to debut his version of the character in X-Men Apocalypse, and there was a solo film set for October 7th, 2016. He approached Bennett Miller, J.C. Chandor, Gareth Evans, and Darren Aronofsky. Wait. Aronofsky. Requiem for a Dream and Mother Aronofsky. Shit, I would watch that. Anyway, Tatum worked hard. He had begun learning how to throw cards and do sleight of hand tricks. By 2018, Fox had removed it from the schedule of releases. It was then slated for summer of 2019. The film was described as having a comedic tone and revolving around a heist, and had also undergone a rewrite to make it more New Orleans. By January 2019, Tatum had interest in directing and starring in the film. Then it was revealed that the film was put on hold during the Disney acquisition of Fox. After the acquisition, Disney canceled the film and removed it from the release schedule. Will it come back? We don't know. But if Deadpool can, why can't Gambit? Now that we've discussed the ones that have no footage, let's discuss the ones that do. Starting with the failed 2011 Wonder Woman pilot. This was going to be on the CW probably, so let's talk about this pilot and figure out exactly why it's terrible and no one picked it up. We know why. It was terrible and no one picked it up. There are some interesting ideas here. Let's start with apologizing to Cary Elwes and Elizabeth Hurley because they are in this. The plot revolves around performance drugs, but Wonder Woman is not Wonder Woman here. She uses the lasso of truth and puts it around a guy's neck. What can I say but yikes? She also tells off the cops and takes the guy's blood. And there's a lot of corporate politics, so it's suffering from Iron Fist Season 1 syndrome. But there are good things about this. Etta Candy is a black woman in this, so good news for representation. Also, the argument about action figures was a good idea if poorly executed.
Truth, justice, and the American way, right?
Sort of.
No, that's Superman. So, Elizabeth Hurley, who is still in this, is the villainous CEO who is creating super soldiers for the military-industrial complex. But what gets me is that Wonder Woman torturing a guy for information is apparently perfectly fine. The detective tells her to cool her jet and he'll obtain the information without torture so he can get a warrant. Look, I don't like the criminal justice system, but wanton disregard of the system is stupid, especially when the detective tells her that all of her evidence is gonna let these criminals walk free. Like, he makes a good point. Wonder Woman is extremely condescending to pretty much everyone, and that's definitely not how Wonder Woman operates. I mean, unless this is the Injustice universe.
Even the most liberal interpretation of the Patriot Act doesn't contemplate the things you do.
I thought we agreed no more politics in the DC universe after someone misunderstood why a Superman statue was in Metropolis. You can tell the wires are still there from the fight scenes, but the fights still look sloppy. And when Elizabeth Hurley gets hers and is arrested, Wonder Woman's company applauds her so they can keep their jobs. Yikes. So what happened here? After Adrian Palicki was selected, they went into costuming, but some people weren't exactly enthused. Kyle Buchanan of New York said it looked less like a superhero outfit and more like a Project Runway challenge gone awry, the kind of thing Nina Garcia would dismiss by sniffing shiny, cheap, and tacky. But Linda Carter liked it and said Palicki looked gorgeous. Linda Carter is the gold standard of being Wonder Woman. She starred in the 1970s television series and is usually asked if she approves of the new Wonder Woman because of her position in the mythos. In March of 2011, most of the cast was set and production was happening. In the April 11th through 17th, 2011 edition of TV Guide, the plot was described as a reinvention of the iconic DC comic in which Wonder Woman, aka Diana Themyscira, is a vigilante crime fighter in LA, but also a successful corporate executive and a modern woman, trying to balance all of the elements of her extraordinary life. Which would be fine if that was actually what they were going for, but the lack of empathy from Wonder Woman and Diana is bad and vastly out of character. On May 12, 2011, NBC said it wouldn't pick up the series. David E. Kelley had imagined Wonder Woman not as fun, but frustrated. As a vigilante, she's irritated by the confines of the criminal justice system. As a normal woman, she's lonely. Her nemesis is Veronica Cale, Elizabeth Hurley, a pharmaceutical CEO who's up to no good. Okay, up to no good? What is this, an effing Bugs Bunny cartoon? Apparently, audiences couldn't buy into the modernization, which I admit is difficult. It works for most properties, but you have to frame it in the correct way. Don't just put the most out-of-character Wonder Woman on screen and be like, hey, it's a Wonder Woman show! We think. While superheroes have done gangbusters on the big screen, there haven't been successful recent comic book-based TV series except for the teen angst-filled Smallville, which was not a straight adaptation of the Superman comics, but rather an original prequel. Oh, and the Arrowverse, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Agent Carter, and... Let's talk about the Fantastic Four movie from the 1990s. I'm not going to talk about plot as I touched on it in my Doctor Doom episode here, but I will say there was a lot about the movie that actually worked. If you did see this movie, the limousine shot at the end when the arm comes out and the Human Torch animation, it looks bad, says Langford of Fantastic Four's Limitations. But the movie is not a joke. The movie, for what it is, it works. Oh, and Mark Ruffalo auditioned for the part of Dr. Doom, so that could have been a thing, but personally, I think he's better as Bruce Banner. You have to feel for director Oli Sassone. After putting in so much effort into making this movie, despite the ludicrous budget and time constraints, the rug was pulled out from under him. It seemed like the fruit of his labor was doomed to be forgotten as merely a footnote in comic book movie history, until the fan base changed this. Even though the movie wasn't released to the public on VHS or in cinema, someone got hold of a copy and it's done the rounds at conventions and on the World Wide Web. In fact, you can even watch the movie on YouTube right now. Sassone, the director, has apologized for the film many times because it looks crappy, as the bootleg is on VHS. And he knows that the special effects fall short. He also explains that the filmmakers and the cast never got the chance to do what they would have liked to do with the film, and that the film suffers for that. Knowing the film had been abandoned, Sassone set out to find a pristine copy of the film for his own uses. As detailed in The Doom, Sassone and editor Glenn Garland broke into Roger Corman's film vault with flashlights in the hope of finding a negative to steal so they would have something to show for all their hard work. But the negative was gone. Rumor has it was thrown in a fire. Woof! That's really heavy. Thank God for bootleggers, though, am I right? Like, not the entertainment pirates, but like the bootleggers of alcohol from the 1920s. Amazing. I will note that the film was going for the Jack Kirby era, and it definitely shows. The makers and cast got no additional compensation, but more people have seen the film than would have in theatrical release because of the bootleg. They were going to screen it at the Mall of America, but it fell through. So, I don't have to film on location, which is good, because no. And that brings us to Superman Lives. The screen tests speak for themselves, but I would like to point out Chris Rock was going to play Jimmy Olsen and Christopher Walken was going to be Brainiac. Fuck me running, that would have been great. They wanted a 90s version of Superman, and Doomsday would have been...
in any way, shape, or form. We wanted him to be a hurricane personified, a force of nature, a raging beast, because that's something that is very different than Superman. And that's what we wanted Doomsday to be.
Which, yes please. I really like the concept art and the look of what they had in mind for Krypton.
The idea of, instead of space being depicted as this cold technological place, there were a lot of organic qualities to what we were designing that made you feel that it was beautiful, made you feel that there was something poignant that Clark missed out on in his life on Earth.
I also like how Nicolas Cage talks about Superman Lives. Listen to this.
You know, that character is such a bullseye that you have to hit. He's almost, he's one of the most precious icons of our country. And the fact that Tim and I were pretty far down the road designing it, and I know with Tim and where I was going to go, we would have done something really special.
He had such passion for the project. I think that my waifu Nietzsche has probably the best summation of what superhero movies are. Without dreams, one would never have found occasion to separate the real world from another world. And that's what I think development hell projects embody. You have someone who adores the project and wants to make it happen, but either the money falls through or it just stops in some other way. I think that development hell is a reminder for us to follow our dreams. Hi guys, thanks for putting up with me in that video. If you like what I do, you can definitely go to my Patreon, which is like over there. Or you could subscribe to my channel, or you could watch other videos, which are probably over here. Or if you really want like extras on my Patreon, you could get cat photos, behind the scenes of the cats wrestling, cuddles, and more importantly, I will give you a dozen cookies every month if you live in the United States, if you donate to that tier. There's also producer credit and thank yous on Twitter and access to our Discord. If you have any questions, oh fuck, I forgot about the Teespring. Also the Teespring.